The COVID outbreak at a nursing home in Sydney's northwest and a string of new exposure sites around the city has raised concern about the future of that city's lockdown. Now, the 2-week shutdown is set to end at midnight on Friday, but progress in bringing cases under control is being threatened on a number of fronts. There is fury from relatives after it was revealed most staff at a Baulkham Hills aged care facility were not vaccinated. So far, 3 residents have tested positive to the highly infectious Delta strain of COVID.
Health authorities have also released a list of new exposure locations. They include busy bus and train routes through the city's densely populated inner west. Let's get more from our reporter in Sydney, Lara Hyams, who's outside Summit Care in Baulkham Hills. Good morning, Lara. There was a little bit of hope yesterday when those numbers seemed to come down in New South Wales, 16 new cases. Much lower than what we'd seen over the previous few days. Did that make people feel that maybe this outbreak is under control?
Good morning, Lisa. Well, they're not great, but they are an improvement. 16 down from the previous day, which stood at 31 cases. Now, of those 16, 14 of those are linked to already known cases. So even that is an improvement in itself. 2 of them remain under investigation. Now, 13 of those individuals were already in isolation at the time that they tested positive during their contagious period. 2 of them were in isolation for a partial amount, and 1 of those individuals were out there in the community at the time that they were contagious. So whether or not that spread continues remains to be seen. We do know that a couple of the weapons that New South Wales Health want to use against the spread of COVID is obviously in the testing rates. We saw 45,000 down from the previous day's total of 56,000 tests. And of course, vaccinations are still continuing to go up, but New South Wales Health want that ramping up to continue. 900,000 vaccinations have already been administered by New South Wales Health. Now, in terms of this particular aged care facility, there were 3 cases linked to this particular venue. 2 of them are aged in their 80s, a couple, and a man aged in his 90s. Now, all 3 of those individuals, we believe, have been vaccinated. 96% of the residents here have been vaccinated, according to the centre. But those 3 individuals were taken to hospital out of a precautionary measure. We don't believe that they are showing any symptoms of COVID-19 at this time.
Yeah, the residents might have been vaccinated, but it turns out that the staff weren't, and we've known that this is a problem, haven't we?
Well, we heard yesterday from the centre's CEO that about a third of the workforce has been vaccinated at this time. Now, this was all discussed in National Cabinet. There was an outline as to how aged care workers would be part of the vaccination rollout plan, that they would be added to that priority understanding. But with that, that was only announced that the first dose of the vaccine would be administered to aged care workers, which would be mandatory. But as part of that rollout, that wouldn't be coming into effect until mid-September. So there has been some questions about that plan and also the issue of supply. We do know, though, that health officials are scrambling and trying to make sure that there isn't an outbreak at this particular centre.
Obviously, it's a watch and wait. We're doing everything we can to ensure that infection control procedures are in place. That area has been, of impacted areas, been locked down, even within the lockdown of the whole facility. And certainly we need to wait and see how those individuals progress.
So lockdown for some, not for others. What have the Dragon players been up to?
Well, police have been very clear, and also the authorities, that this lockdown really does mean a lockdown. It is expected to go up until Saturday morning, but there are those who do breach the rules. Now, this particular event, this particular breach, centres on the Dragons, or the NRL Dragons prop, Paul Vaughan. He was actually fined for having a party at his house on Saturday night. Police were called to his property just after 9:30 after reports that there was some partying going on at this particular property. 13 of the individuals who were at that particular event were fined, were issued with a $1,000 fine. We do know that the head of the NRL said he's gutted and disappointed by the actions of these individuals. And of course, police have said to those in the community, if you hear or see anyone that looks like they're in breach of those public health orders, to get in touch with them.
Thanks, Lara. In other news, selected GPs across Australia will begin administering the Pfizer vaccine today, including for people between 40 and 59. Initially, 500 doctors' surgeries will be able to deliver the vaccine to eligible patients, with nearly 40% of those offering the jab based in rural areas. A further 800 general practices are expected to come online later in the month, including many Aboriginal community-controlled health organisations.
Queensland health authorities say they are confident a number of COVID outbreaks in the state are coming under control, although an alpha strain cluster is growing. 2 locally acquired cases linked to Brisbane's Portuguese restaurant cluster were detected on the first day of eased restrictions across the state, with a second set to be included in today's figures. 3 new exposure sites on the Sunshine Coast were also listed last night.
NT Chief Minister Michael Gunner says rules on gatherings and masks are on track to ease on Friday as planned, after the Territory recorded no new cases yesterday. The news came as police charged a woman with assault after allegedly refusing to wear a face mask and spitting in the face of a hospitality worker. A $5,000 fine has also been issued to a mine worker who visited a Darwin supermarket while he was supposed to be in isolation.
And WA remains on track to further ease restrictions on mask wearing and capacity limits in the Perth and Peel regions tomorrow. The state recorded 1 new COVID case yesterday. Now, Australians in 4 states and territories are now able to travel to and from New Zealand again as that trans-Tasman bubble starts to reopen. Reporter Zali Charismal joins us now from Melbourne Airport. Zali, good morning. So which states are included?
Good morning, Michael. Well, quarantine-free travel has resumed for 4 states and territories. That includes ACT, South Australia, Tasmania and, of course, Victoria, where I am now. You can see behind me quite a busy Melbourne airport this morning. Sadly, 4 states and territories still locked out. That's Queensland, Western Australia, Northern Territory and New South Wales. Now, there are still some rules for travellers. They'll need to get a negative pre-flight COVID test. They also can't have been to New South Wales since the 22nd of June and also to those other states and territories that are locked out since the 26th of June. But it's great to see this travel-free, this quarantine-free bubble beginning again.
It is indeed. So when are we expecting to see the first flights leave for New Zealand this morning?
We've already had 1 flight leave this morning to Queenstown, but we are expecting a steady stream of flights after 8 this morning to Auckland, to Wellington, to Christchurch, to Queenstown as well. So it's great to see airlines putting up these services, and you can see that the travellers are also very excited to be joining the travel bubble again. We've spoken to various people this morning, all going over to visit families and all having been affected by the on and off again nature of this travel bubble by these last minute cancellations. Have a listen to some of what they've had to say.
Quite emotional. I don't want to believe that it's happening until now. We were meant to fly last week, or my parents were meant to come out a couple of weeks ago, and because of all the lockdown here, they decided to kind of wait a little while and see what happens because they didn't want to get stuck.
Just going to go and hang out with my sister. And who are you guys going to see?
Our cousins.
It's been hard, haven't gone anywhere, haven't really done anything. It's a bit stressful because, if something happens, you can't sort of leave. So, yeah, but I'm glad they've opened the travel bubble. I think it's good. So.
Now, we are expecting New Zealand authorities to be reviewing those other states and territories when that travel bubble can resume. We're expecting an announcement of that tomorrow, but we do know that it won't resume until at least July the 7th.
Zali, thank you.
Had a couple of comments already coming in from people in regards to this and the thoughts by business leaders. Alan Joyce, Jane Herdlicker, a bit concerned that there isn't the meat to that plan on Friday. Grant said, I'm a project manager by trade. If I provided clients a 4-step plan without any dates or milestone criteria, I'd be fired.
And David says he thinks it's simply the same as last year's plan, only without any Pfizer yet. And just as we wrap up, it's worth noting as of yesterday, 30% of Australia's eligible population had received their first dose of vaccine. 9% have been fully vaccinated. Our email address is breakfast@your.abc.net.au, and you can join the conversation as well on Facebook and Twitter.